Alright, so implementing a diggable terrain. Basically, what we're looking at is you walk around the surface. I set up a third person character as first person so you can have a body. Then we're able to dig into the ground to reveal an item underneath. Now let me show you how to do that. Alright, so let me move this guy over. The first thing you want to do is create a landscape. I'm just going to do it one by one. And we'll create. And now you want to go ahead and do all of your sculpting first. Okay, so you use Control and Shift to push down. You just click to pull up. And then hold down Shift to smooth things out a little bit. Okay, and then you can go ahead and chain and choose different elements here if you want to. I'm going to stick with this guy. So we'll go back into place, select our landscape, go to File, Export Selected, and then you want to export it as an FBX. So I'm just going to click Save, and all the default settings should be good. Export. Okay. So now you just want to go ahead and delete that guy. Go in your content browser. Go make a new folder. Landscape. Dig 1. Open this up, and we're going to import that. Open. And turn auto-generate collision off. And we don't want to import the materials or textures. Import all. And now we have our landscape. So let's open this guy up and set up our collision. To do that, you just scroll down a little bit. Collision complexity. Change that to use complex. Collision is simple. Save. And don't worry about the error, that's fine. And now we're ready to go. You want to right click, go to Blueprint Class. And here, you want to choose a static mesh actor. Okay? I'm going to select that. Landscape BP. Save. Alright, I have code in this other one here, so I'm just going to move that over here as a reference. Okay, open this guy up. And now you click on static mesh component in the viewport, and then static mesh right over here. You want to choose that landscape that you exported. Okay. And now we'll actually come back to this. Let's go ahead and minimize. And we're going to create a few things. First thing I want to create is a landscape material. That one. Open that guy up. And then, oops. What happened to that? Close out. And I'm going to open up this guy here. And then this guy here. Okay. So there's a few things you want to do before you get started in actually putting together the material. So you want to select here, then scroll down until you reach tessellation. And then you want to click here, PN triangles, crack free displacement. And yeah, that should be good. So now you want to set up the material. So first thing I want to do is set up my texture and my normal map, my diffuse and my normal map. So if you hold the letter T on the keyboard and left click, it'll create a texture sample. I'm going to create 2 of those. And for right now, I'm just going to choose some random things here. Right. So now you want a multiply node. So we're going to hold M, left click. That'll give us this guy. And this guy I'm just going to kind of leave there. And I'm going to comment. And to comment, you select the nodes that you want. Hit the letter C on the keyboard. And it'll automatically create a comment box around it. Right. So now we want to right click, texture coordinate. We want a scalar parameter. So you're going to hold S, left click. We'll call this scale. And I want the default value to be like 3. We're going to multiply those. And basically what this is doing is it's allowing our normal and our grass to be tileable. So whatever you change this value to, it'll tile your texture that many times. Okay, so I'm not going to do anything more with the normal because I don't have an actual normal map here, but this should be good. Right. So now we want to set up our world displacement and tessellation multiplier. For the tessellation multiplier, just hold down 1, click, plug that in, and we're going to set this to like 10. Now go down here for to set up our displacement. So you want to hold the number 3, left click, gives us a 3 vector. I'm going to change blue to 1 because we're working in the Z axis, and Z is up and down, which is the blue channel. So okay. Now we want to get the vertex normal in world space. That's essentially going to be getting the up value, I guess. Now we want to mask the blue channel. And doing this will actually allow us to offset the material vertically. Okay, so now we want to create another one, another scalar parameter. So if you hold down S and left click again, I'll give you that. Default value here is going to be 75, so it's going to be essentially 75 units tall, so it's going to be stretched vertically. Okay, another multiply, again, M, left click, multiply those bad boys together. Now we want another texture coordinate. And this time we want the coordinate index to be 1. That way we're using separate coordinate index, so we're not messing around with the texture here. It's just the displacement that we're worried about. Okay. So now you want to hold down the number 3, left click, right click here. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's the wrong thing. You want to hold down T, left click for a texture sample, right click, convert to parameter. And we're going to call this dis for displacement. And plug the UV in there. We want one more multiply. Multiply these guys together. And then we also want to do a clamp. And this clamp is going to ensure that the value never reaches 0, but also the value never exceeds 1. And that's for our diffuse up there. So we can actually plug that right in. Plug that right into there. Okay. And now that error was just saying that we need a texture in here. So you click here, go to View Options, and you want to show engine content. And then here you want to just type in white, and you want to do default white grid underscore low. I'm just going to set that right there. And then this guy go into our world displacement, and now once this compiles, you'll see this is going to be stretched like an egg. And voila. Oh, and then our specular. Let's just do a 3 vector. Hold down number 3. Left click. We're just going to do that like that. Just so it gets a a green glow rather than a white for when we put a grass texture in there. Yeah, looks better. Apply, save. We're good to go with that, so let's close that out. Now, I want to create another material. This is going to be dig mat 1. Open that guy up. And here we also have to make some more changes again. So we'll go to blend mode first, change that to modulate, change this to unlit, and then you want to scroll down, and what you'll see is this. So under translucency, you want to click this drop down arrow and turn off render after depth of field, and that arrow will go away. So now what we want to do is basically what this material is going to be doing is this is going to be placed wherever our trace is on the ground, and this is the actual texture that digs into the ground. So we're going to go open Photoshop real quick and make that. Now with something like this, you can really do whatever you want. 512 by 512 is good enough. And what I usually do, just for kind of speed's sake, is I paint in a white background. Make sure my foreground, I switch it back so my foreground is black. Go to filter, render, difference clouds. Now we've got that. Then I press B, get my brush, keep the black, just paint around the edges. Okay, and then we want to save that. We're going to save that as a targa, and then give it whatever you name you want, and then click save, and then 24 bits is fine. Click OK. That should be good. Close that out. Now we want to open up our content browser. Go to import, and import in that texture we had. I'm going to save everything. And then we can straight up just drag that in. Okay. You know, this could be, like I said before, this could be any texture. You know, if you want it to be a spade shape, you know, if you're going to implement like a shovel, so you switch between like the metal detector and the shovel, you could totally do that. That would be actually really cool. This is just for the sake of time for the video. But you do want to use a black, gray, and white kind of gradient. Or if you want it to be a hard edge, so it just kicks right down, use just white and black. Okay. So we're going to multiply. We want to multiply the RGB by the alpha. Multiply again. And we want to scale a parameter. This is going to be strength. And I'm going to set the default to like 1.2. Plug that in. And then we want a 1 minus. Basically what this 1 minus is doing is inverting everything, as you can see here. So now we want some sort of up multiplier. So let's multiply again. And this is essentially going to be how deep it is. So S, I'm going to give that name up multi. And let's put a default in at like 0.1. Plug that in, and then we want to pop the alpha, multiply again, so we can combine these two. Right in there. And then we also want to add. And basically what this is doing is creating kind of a cleaner frame on it. It's kind of hard to see at such a small scale, but it's kind of cleaning it up a little. And then plug that into emissive. Now what you get is kind of this faded look here. Apply, save. Now we want to close that out and go into our landscape EP. Okay. So now we want to go into our construction script and start putting together our material instance and render target, because we're essentially just drawing to a render target, and that's what's going to drive everything. So we want to drag off of here, create dynamic material instance, and we want to make sure to set this to our landscape material 1, and then you want to make sure to promote this to a variable. So ground. And then you want to do another one. Create dynamic material instance. That's not a target of the primitive component, just by itself. You want this to be dig material 1. And then you also want to promote this. So right click on it to promote. Okay. And now we want to get our impact, set scalar parameter value. And this is going to be our strength. So if you remember, open that back up. And that one too. So if I bring this guy over, we have that scalar parameter, strength, right here. Right now, so basically by referencing it in code, we're going to be adjusting that value in code. Okay. So promote to value variable, I'm sorry. We want that dig scale. And I'm going to set that to 2, so compile, set that to 2. Let's get our impact again. And I want to set, you don't necessarily have to do this. This is just kind of ease of use, so you can adjust the settings a little bit easier. But you could absolutely just adjust the values in the material itself. And then the up multiplier, I'll do as 0.05 for now. Okay. Check. Yeah, so that's all good. And now we want to go to the event graph, and we want to create a function. So we're going to go over here to function, create that, and let's name this render target. And now we're going to create a render target. So create render target 2D. We want to set the width to 8192, 8192, and use a format of RGB alpha 8. And then we'll promote that to a variable, call it land. And we want to clear render target 2D. Plug that in, plug that in. We want to set the color to white. It's very important that you set that to white. Now let's get our ground variable. Set texture parameter value. Plug that in. And this is our displacement texture. So if I show you again, created this right here. So we're essentially writing this to a render target. And our value we want to be our render target. So it's essentially drawing this render target to that texture 2D. Okay. Right, so now event graph, event begin play. We want to call render target. That's the function we just made. Let's delete these two. And now we want to create a custom event. Ground hit. And we want two inputs. The first one is going to be our UV location. And that's going to be a vector 2D. And then this one is going to be our rotation. And that is going to be a float. Okay. So now we want to get our land here. Right click, begin draw canvas to render target, and we want our render target to be that. And then for our rotation, we want to calculate that because we're going to be basing it off of the player's rotation. So we have to kind of invert it and flip it for us to be able to use it properly. Because we kind of want it always facing the player, right? Okay, so I want to now set canvas material scale and position. So size, and then the position is going to be the UV location, and you want to promote this to a variable. Oh no, we already have that as a variable. What am I doing? Oh, wait a minute. I think I messed up. Hold on. Yeah, no, we don't we don't want that to be dig scale. F2. Dig strength. Right there. And then on our event graph, we want this to be our dig strength. Sorry about that. Or dig scale, yeah. Okay, so to reiterate what I did. Construction script on the strength parameter, we want this float value to be dig strength value. And then here, we want this to be dig scale. And we're going to set that to 0.04. Now these values are very dependent on what materials and things you use. So so you definitely want to kind of pay attention to what your settings are, and then you'll kind of adjust accordingly. Okay. So now you want to drag off canvas, draw material. Okay. Screen position goes to the screen position, screen size to screen size. And the render material is our impact material, because that's what we want drawing to the render target in order to produce the dig. That rotation is going to be our rotation there. And then finally we want to end draw canvas to render target. Our context is the context there on this node here. Okay, compile, save. And now we want to go into our player. So I'm going to open the content browser again. Go to third person BP, blueprints, open this guy up. Now I already built it in here, but I'll go through it again and show you. Okay, so you want a keyboard input. So what you can do instead of doing this is edit project settings, go to input, action mappings, add, and we'll call this dig. And we'll set the key to E. So we'll type in E there and scroll down and find E there. Okay. So, but while we're in here, you want to click all settings. You want to type in hit And you see this here, support UV from hit results. Check that on, and then restart the editor. Make sure you go to File, Save All, but restart the editor, because this needs to be ticked on in order to store the collision UV, or use the collision UV node. Okay, so make sure you do that. Okay, so now that we did that, we can delete this. We're just typing dig, and this is our input action that we just created. So now let's set up our line trace here. So we got our follow camera. Grab that from right here. And you want to drag off, get world location, which is here. Want to get forward vector, which is here. And then the world location is going to be your start. So that's going to be the center of the follow camera. So the center of this guy right here, where that white ball is. And then the forward vector is pretty much wherever the direction forward, wherever the camera is looking. So a good way to explain this is, take a gun for instance. The gun's location in the world is the get world location, right? So if I'm holding my hands in, in the middle of Florida, the world location will be my coordinates in Florida. And then get forward vector is the direction that the bullet is going to go in when I pull the trigger. So if I'm facing up, it's going to be 1 in the z-axis, which is going to fire the bullet up. Now we multiply it by float. So if you drag off here, multiply, get a float there, or vector times float rather. This number 500 is the distance the bullet is going to travel, right? So if we change this to 1,000, it's going to travel 1,000 units. 500, it's going to travel 500 units, and so on. So now we want to add those together. So you drag off the top one, press add, vector plus vector, add those two together, and that's your end. Okay, and then draw a debug type. You want to do, let's do for duration just to show it off. And you want to make sure trace complex is on and ignore self is on. Ignore self should be on by default, but if it's not, make sure it's on. Alright, so you want to branch, just hold B, left click, branch, plug in the return value, and then the execute. And then you want to drag off here, type in break, and then drag off here again, and type in find collision UV. On this node, you want to make sure UV channel is 1, because remember, in the material, on the texture coordinate, we changed the coordinate index to 1. So we want to make sure that we're utilizing that UV channel to adjust that displacement texture. Right. So now off the break hit result, you want to drag off hit actor and cast to landscape BP, and in our case is 1 because I made a new one. So you want to cast to that, drag off here, and get ground hit, and that should be your target. And then off of here, UV is UV location. And then for the rotation, grab our mesh, get world rotation, right there. And then you can right click and you'll have the option to split pin. So go ahead and split the pin and then plug Z into rotation. Okay. Alright, so now let's just double check our values here. Dig strength is 2. Up multi is 0.05. Dig scale, dig scale I missed. Okay. Dig scale I have set at 0.04. Okay. And then, oh right, moved it. And then you go in here, look down, press E, keep tapping E, and you'll dig. And you can see that those red lines are the line trace. So you can see that the line is starting from where the camera is pointed, and then it's going down, and those little red squares are where it's hitting the terrain. Okay. Now there are still a few issues with this. So if you look up, you get cracks in the displacement. Increasing the tessellation multiplier sometimes will work, or also increasing the smoothness of the landscape before you actually export it as an FBX sometimes helps as well. But like I said before in the Discord, that the system still does need work. So, but yeah. So now what you can do? Oh, I'm sorry. There's one thing I forgot to do. Open up your character. Go to viewport. And you see how my character is lifted like this? The reason for that is if I set this, oh, sorry, -90 is default. If I set this here, press play, there's no collision on the world displacement here where it's lifted up. So if you look down, you see that I'm just kind of walking through it because the actual collision is on the terrain below. So that's what I'm walking on, right? And it goes through it. So to fix that, grab your character here. And I think I had it at -17. And that'll do it. Okay. So now the final thing, I want to show you how to set up your camera like this. So if you want to, you can keep a third person if you really want to. But, so by default, you should see that there's a camera boom above this. So delete the camera boom, and then you want to grab your follow camera and drag it over the mesh. Okay? Once you've done that, you want to make sure you click on the follow camera. Go over here to the magnifying glass and type in head, then click. Okay. And now we're going to click this arrow, turn off real time, and then with the camera selected, I just want to zero this stuff out. Okay. And now as you can see, it's sideways, so we want to rotate it. So we'll rotate it -90 in the X direction. I'll bring it up. And then we just want to move forward, and I'll bring it up a little bit. Okay. and now with the camera still selected, you want to click Use Pawn Control Rotation. Make sure that's on. And then under Class Defaults, you want to choose Use Controller Rotation Yaw. And take that on. Right. When you hit play, you'll be walking on top of your train, and you can look around in the first person kind of view. Right. So now there's one last thing I wanted to show you real quick. So if I make a blueprint class actor, and we'll call this like pickup. Go to add a component, static mesh, item, and I'm just going to make it a cube. And then we will place this cube in the world. And I'm going to let it stick out just a little bit so I know where it is when I'm playing. Okay. At least I thought I was going to know where it. Ah, okay. So you see that there? So I'm able to dig around it and do that. And a cool way to kind of fix the issue I was having, because the trace was actually detecting that object, I can do actors to ignore, make array, No, you know what? I won't do that yet. I'll save that for later. I will save that for later. But just to kind of show it off here. That you can, dig the treasure out. And then you're able to actually pick it up, afterwards once you have that functionality implemented. So that's kind of how this system will work for you. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.